Some things you'll need beforehand: a 13mm socket, a 13mm wrench, a T30 Torx bit. Obviously, you know, you could use it in a different application. Mine happens to be a socket. So some sort of contact cleaner that's going to dry really fast and not leave any stuff behind. Also, an oil change kit, a drain pan, and a clean rag is all going to come in handy for the oil change process. We're going to start off by pulling the drain bolt on the bottom with this 13mm crescent wrench. And this guy is going to be right here. We're just going to break this bad girl loose. And you can spin it off the rest of the way by hand. So now that we got that drain bolt out of there, we're just going to let it pour into our pan. And this is where your clean rag starts to come in handy. You can assess the bolt a little bit. There's a magnet on the bottom there. It's going to attract some stray metal pieces, and doesn't look too bad, but the oils definitely needs a change. Definitely got a little bit of black sitting there. Take off the old copper washer that's on that drain bolt, because your oil kit is going to come with a new one. The crush washer for our drain bolt. The kit's going to come with a new crush washer. And clean off the drain bolt the rest of the way. Clean off some of the excess oil that was left behind on there. Now you'll notice that the oil drainage starts to get a lot less. It's just sort of seeping out there, and it's actually windy today, so it's blowing a little bit. We can rock the bike side to side like this and help some of that oil find its way down to the bottom. And you can also hold down the cut engine button while you press the start engine button, and that will also help the motor cycle over and get some of that oil to drain out the bottom of the pan. Just be careful to make sure that the motor doesn't run. If it does try to crank over and run, make sure that you let off of the start engine and hold this until the motor cuts back off. You'll hear the motor turn over without running. And then after doing that for a few times, you'll notice that the oil will start to pour out a lot faster than it was before. And you're basically helping flush out the rest of that old oil out of the bike. I'm going to repeat that process 2 to 3 times. Next, we're going to remove this screen right here with the 13mm socket. So I guess I lied at the start of the video. We're going to use a set of needle nose to grab this little screen here. Aha. So that's the screen I was talking about that we're going to clean off with that contact cleaner. They make better stuff for it. You basically just want something that's going to clean the filter off and evaporate quickly without leaving anything behind. Now time to take the oil filter and oil cap off. The T30 Torx bit is going to help us get these bolts off. You want to make sure that you crack them both loose before you drive them both out. Just gently remove the cap, a little bit of drains. May have to pry the filter out, so sometimes it doesn't always slide right out. But be careful and pay attention to the orientation of the filter when you're removing it, because that is going to be important when you're putting it back on. I'm going to see if I can get a magnet. No, that's probably an aluminum. There we go. Yeah, as you can see, one side of the filter that goes into the bike first has a seal on the back side, and this side doesn't. Now we're gonna open up our oil change kit and see what's inside. So that's the oil filter to replace the old one. We've got the lovely fresh oil here, the 4T motor oil cross power, fully synthetic. Oil of Switzerland. Now this is the exact amount you're gonna pour into the bike. You're not gonna, there's no, they make it really easy for you. There's no math, none of that. Now that the oil is fully drained, we have our screen out and our old oil filter removed. We can start by putting in the new filter. And when I'm doing this, guys, I like to take just a little bit of that old oil and put it on this seal right here to make sure it stays good and lubed up and never gets dry. And you can do this by hand. You don't need no special tools. Just make sure that when you're putting in the filter, you'll feel it and hear it click into that groove. Push it all the way in gently. All right, and it's seated good. So now I can put my cap back on and torque those bolts back down. Some caps do have to be oriented a specific way, but I do not believe that the ones that come on the Gasgas 250 have to be oriented in this, but however, I do keep it the same way. I just remember that the oil filter is on the left. It's just as you would read it. So I'm gonna push the cap down and let it seat and then start these bolts by hand. These things don't require any crazy torque. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but you just want them kind of snug. You don't have to wrench them down, but hand tight. All right, now that we've got our clean screen, we're gonna put it in and then put the cap for that back on. It too needs to be seated into position. And once you feel it seat where it should, you're gonna put your cap back on by hand first. Once we feel it grab the threads, just keep running it down by hand. And when it starts to get tight, that's when we're gonna grab our 13mm socket and snug it down. Same as before, nothing too crazy. The German torque spec, good and tight. We're gonna finish the job off by putting our drain bolt back in after we've got it cleaned off. But first, we gotta put a new copper washer on this bad boy. Now that we have our drain bolt equipped with the new copper crush washer, we can install it. It's always important to start these by hand. Forcing it into the wrong position will cause it to damage any threads. Now with that new copper crush washer on here, when we get ready to snug this bad boy down, we're gonna go to hand tight, and then we're gonna go probably just a quarter turn more to crush that washer just a little bit up against the case. Not too much, but just a little bit more. If you want it, like I said, you really want that washer to crush a little bit. All right, now it's time to fill the bike up with our new oil. First, we'll remove the oil cap, clean it off. I find that a funnel helps me out a lot with this part, but I know some of you guys have much steadier hands than me. Now that we got our oil change finished up, I'm going to go over a couple other simple maintenance tips that'll help you keep your bike running fresh for a lot longer. We're going to go over some chain maintenance. They say typically 3 fingers is right around the length that you want. And because I pressure wash my bike every time after I ride, I like to first come through with WD-40. So I'll spray around the WD-40 all along the entire chain to get all that water out the crevices. And then when I'm done with the WD-40, I'll come back again and hit it with some Lucas Oil chain lube, because this is what is ultimately going to stick to the chain. That's what's going to leave that lube behind on it and keep it fresh for the next ride. Keep in mind, this does not replace this. You should always have this. Like I said, the only reason I use WD-40 first is because my chain is still good and wet by the time I'm ready to lube it back up. So I use the WD-40 first, and then I'll come back and run some chain lube on it. Also, every now and then you may want to take a look at your fork tubes, and just to make sure that there's no oil leaking from these seals up here. Besides keeping the fork tubes clean, there's not really much you can do to get more life out of that seal, but at least by checking it, you know when it needs to be replaced. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode. Hopefully you guys learned a couple little tips and tricks to help extend the life of your bike. This video was actually requested by one of our fans. Thank you guys for watching and sticking with us. More shenanigans to come. Look at that Earl, looking cleaner than Crisco, baby. Well, check out some of the damage from my last video. If you guys haven't seen, you should go check that one out. How not to do a burnout on a dirt bike. Just kind of scuffed up the shift lever a little bit here, not too bad. The peg too got a little scrapage, not too bad. But other than that, no plastics got damaged, I don't think. Oh, my bad, I take that back, guys. We did have a little bit of road rash right here. If you guys haven't seen that, definitely go check that video out. I appreciate it. Now that we're done with our entire oil change, we can crank the bike up, let it run for a few minutes, and check for any leaks.